That's a good question. I don't think so. And I took a look because I just wanted to make sure I really understood. The one type of radiation I did know that causes it is ultraviolet radiation. And we get that's the particular wavelengths for that frequency of light. And that's in the terahertz range, I believe. And so what we're talking about is in the microwave range. And so I'm asking around, and it's talking about how cancer causing frequencies are more in the X rays and gamma rays. And it's because of this ionizing radiation. And that totally makes sense to me because the frequencies of those types of lights would impact the molecular structure of the DNA. And by doing that, that's what causes cancer. And that's why like X-rays are a problem, CT scans. And so that's really where it's at. But when you get into the microwave frequencies, we're no longer in the terahertz range. We're in the megahertz and the gigahertz range. And that's why they use these, because they pass right through us. They don't affect any molecules and they don't ionize. And that's really the kicker part right there. They do not ionize any kind of molecules at all. That being said, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's impossible for microwaves to do such a thing. They can cause other issues. For example, the real problem is when microwave frequencies have resonance points in space. And so you'll have like these void bubbles. I could draw this. Okay, so in space, and that includes air, when you have frequency patterns of any kind, electromagnetic frequency patterns, waves of energy, those waves, depending on how many sources they're coming from, so there's coming from here, there's one coming from down here, I guess, I don't know, just kind of, this is so abstract of an example. And what's happening is that these waves are all going through this space, creating peaks and troughs, creating voids like this. And this is three-dimensional. We're drawing it in 2D, but in a 3D space, these waves are actually spirals. And so, and the spirals are everywhere, happening all at the same time together. And the spirals are not just like 2D or 3D, they're like multi-dimensional. So they go past 5D. Yes, that makes it very complicated and difficult to draw, but I can still point it out. Because of the bubbles that form from all of this complexity, there are points of concentration where the energy peaks at incredibly high levels, where it's so high that goes right past the top. It's off the charts. When that happens inside, let's say you have a person, right? If a person's just walking or just flying or floating, whatever, is in the middle of this void place, that's a low energy zone. But if you get that person and you put their head right there, and you put their head right in that energy point, and that energy point is peaked enough, no matter what, that's going to cause some damage. Maybe it'll overheat your head, because all it takes is those light frequencies to hit something, anything that resonates with it. And so some of those things include aluminum particles. Some of those things include like heavy metals in your body. And so the real problem here is an overabundance of many different frequencies of a matching type that resonate with each other in ever so slightly differences. That's called phase change. So you have like this one wave, and then you have another wave of exactly the same kind, but it's offset a little bit. And then you have another one. Then you have another one, then you have another one, then you have another one. And they're all the same wavelength, more or less, but they're overlapping on a phase level. And all that phase level means, all what I'm talking about is, one of them is like offset. It's an offset. That's all that means. And so when you're offsetting these waves, changing their phases, and you have all of these different phases, like 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 of the same frequency coming off of a single tower, And there's all of these towers happening all at the same time. And all these frequencies that are normally not a big deal are all hitting each other, creating these crazy bubbles. Eventually, they're going to create resonance pockets that are so peaked that they'll literally spike anything into extreme energy heat. So, and all you need is an antenna of some kind. And if that antenna happens to be inside your body, that antenna is going to heat up so much that it might go molten. We're talking about like aluminum becoming like 6,000 degrees inside your head. And that's like all of the aluminum particles in your body are subject to this. And that's why the metal in your body is such a problem. And you could weaponize this. And so that's another issue. You can weaponize this and target an entire population if you have the right virus that has taken over the entire communication network and electrical systems network. And that's what they're worried about. They're worried about that somebody has happened, that they're acting as if there's some sort of supervillain that has already done this and is holding the world hostage. But it sounds to me like whatever supervillain that is like, it's like Cobra level from G.I. Joe. It's like Hydra level from the Marvel universe. It's like we're basically talking about like what, like super Nazis? Oh, just straight up, like. And so that's the kind of situation that we're talking about in terms of what kind of organization that it sounds to me that we're up against. I think that's the mentality. But for some reason, they're not firing the bullet. They're not setting it off. Maybe they lost control. Now maybe it's like a timing game. I don't know. Maybe they're battling for control. Maybe they're just aware. Maybe the government is just aware that this can happen and it's inevitable. And so they're just getting ready until until their enemy hackers figure it out and then do it. And that's on the table. And there's all of this logic behind that. But let's go back into the science and technology for this. Basically, we're talking about a scenario where all it takes is there to be these resonance pockets anywhere on the surface of Earth where enough towers are in just the right and wrong positions to create these dissonant energy zones, not even resonant, dissonant energy zones that can tear apart or hyperheat. If it's resonance, hyperheat. If it's dissonance, tear apart the heavy metal molecules inside people's bodies. There's other things that can happen too. You can create, if you have enough of this craziness going around and they're coming like, oh, well, now they're coming from below. Well, now they're coming from this side. Now they're coming all around here. I don't even know how the frequency did that. I don't know. That can happen. Pipes inside your building make them reflect and refract. And as a result, their frequencies completely change direction in nature. And all of this cascading can cause other types of problems, like creating meta frequencies that aren't actually in existence, but manifest as a feature of the smaller ones combining. And so these meta frequencies do have resonances with things like your body's organs, molecules, whatever. And so if that goes the wrong way, and it happens all the time, and you walk into that resonance point or that dissonance area, I mean, you're basically going to get all your molecules rearranged. And it won't be like right away, maybe. It'll be like a subtle thing. And so, it's more of a situation where if you sit there for a couple hours, you're not going to be okay at all. It causes disruptions in your electric systems, for sure. And so your brain, your nervous system, anything that involves the bioelectrical field, your aura, all of that stuff gets affected. And that affects your emotions, your mood, your feelings. And so and that can cause epigenetic changes. So there's a lot of ways that this can totally cause serious DNA issues like cancer, among worse things.